There is a, yeah, we have an observation here that children have a very pure heart, meaning thereby that they are, they don't feel like doing anything what adults may do as a so-called wrongdoing and bad actions, etc., etc. So adults are not that pure. So the question arises is, what business do we adults have to teach children, particularly about moral instruction and all kinds of ethics and morality? You know, a very valid question. It should arise in anybody's mind that if children are more honest than we are, then what business an adult has to teach morality or ethics or such things to the children. So, from Vedic philosophy angle, children are viewed as, let's go slightly backward. All of us are, again, in this world, we take birth because of what is called clash. That is a deposit in our mind, somewhere in our mind. So, in Vedic philosophy, before I was born, me, my push, the Atma Tattva, so to say, that soul, whatever you call it, which is a point like singularity and has inherent light of consciousness. That is enveloped by mind. And in the previous life, when I died, whatever I was, animal or human, whatever it is, that me enveloped by the mind left the previous body, and then it was wandering for some time, and then I entered into my father's body, and then I got transported into my mother's body, my mother's womb, and then there were layers were formed. So that is a brief, the description of what is the cycle of birth and death. So when I died last time in previous life, I had certain, likes and dislikes, so to say. Certain experiences in the previous life, multiple lives, I have had, I have enjoyed them, and certain experiences I have found very painful, in particular the process of death. So there is both joy and pain I have experienced in my previous lives, and their impressions are called respectively as rag and dvesh. So rag is my affinity to something that gives me joy, and dvesh is my aversion towards certain things that are perceived by me as painful. These are very subjective things. Now, having taken birth, so these are called as clash. So these are deposits in my mind. So you can treat my mind as, of course, it has a lot of powers, but it also contains some sort of a ledger book, where life after life, these impressions are listed there. Now, in brief, I am calling them as deposits. So that's what bring me into the world. Now, it just happens that each of these clays has four possible states. They are called in Patanjali's terminology Prasupta, Vichinna, and Udar, and let me see, uh, Prasupta Tanu. I missed out a word, Tanu. Prasupta, Tanu, Vichin, and Udar.
Tanu.
I will give you the meaning. So if you don't get the Sanskrit words, no problem. So let's look at first term. Pasuptis, they are in sleeping mode. You know, they exist, but they are not able to, uh, you know, uh, determine any influence. They exist, but they are not dead exactly. They are in sleep mode, so to say. Tanu is they are in very minuscule mode. They are there, but they are not dead. They are not sleeping. They may become active, but they are less likely to be active. So Prasupta and Tanu. Now Vichhinna means they are functional mode, but at this point, that particular clash has been overpowered by another. So they are not effective. Let me say there is an impression of lust, say, and anger. So both are, say, in active mode in an individual, but at this moment he is angry. So even if he sees a young, beautiful woman, that the arousal of lust is not taking place, because he is overpowered by anger. Now, in this particular case, Udaya means that is the operational mode. So, in this particular example, the impression of anger is in functional, is in operative mode, while that of lust has been overpowered, you know. Now, the reason I gave you this background is a child is also born with all this. Even a little child has some sanskar of lust, which are asupta mode, but when the child will be teenager, then they will beginning to show up, is it not? So the answer to the question that we raised is that yes, child is very pure now. It is pure because most of its clash, all these due to which we take birth, are in pasupta mode, are in sleeping mode. That is the, you can say, nature's design, or you can say that is Ishwar's design. But it is very, very, very useful for us because at least as a young age, a child is honest, innocent, and pure. But that will not be always so because, say, the sanskar of lust will also begin to show up when the child is 16, 18 or so. And then, so childhood is a period where you want to educate the child so that the child can face the challenges that will appear in the later part of life. So there was an observation that children are pure. So I thought I will make this observation and make this comment, which I hope you have understood what I meant. Yes, children are pure, but adults are less pure. Still, adults are more mature and they are expected to educate the children so that when they grow up, they can face the challenges in a sensible manner. Okay, now the next question that is here is two terms that sound very similar but have a different meaning. Those two terms are Vedanga and Vedanta. So they both are compound words. The first word is Ved plus Anga. So Ved is a common term in both these compound terms. So first is Ved and Anga. Anga means limbs, part of the body. And usually there is another way to look at it. Angi is that thing, that whole thing, that aggregate of which Ang is the parts. So like I am the whole person as whole, I am Angi, and my hands, my head, my shoulder, my feet, these are my parts of mine, my body in particular. So all Angs put together make the Angi, so to say. So that is a Sanskrit terminology. Like dharmi is the thing, and all its characteristics are its dharma. Hmm? So Angi is one thing, So when we talk about Ang, we have to know in what context, what is the Angi, what is that thing, So first term is Ved and Ang, which are saying these are certain limbs of Vedas. What it means is, if you want to study Vedas in a total sense, then you have to go through the steps of Vedanga. So when you have cleared all these steps of Vedanga, then you are qualified to study the Vedas. So Vedanga is, there are total 6 disciplines. They are, I will give you the Sanskrit terms first. Shiksha, Vyakaran, Nayukta, Chanda, Jyotish and Kalpa. Now Shiksha is, because as you know, all this is of course related to the Vedas. Vedas are, it's not a fully correct, accurate statement, but it's reasonably correct that Vedas are in Sanskrit. Why I say it is not accurate? So I will say Sanskrit is derived from the Vedas, but Vedas have a language which is bit slightly peculiar. It is slightly higher order than Sanskrit language. So that is a slight qualification, but don't worry about that. So when we say Shiksha, Shiksha here is not the dictionary meaning of education. Shiksha means Varnocharan Shiksha. That means because the Sanskrit is a phonetic language where every alphabet has the same sound, whichever way, wherever it comes, Like the alphabet A is always A, Ka is always Ka. So, and these are very scientific, the alphabets. Like Panini has a book called Varnocharan Shiksha. So his one statement is Akuhu Visarjniya Kantha. So Kantha is the throat. So what he's saying is the sound of Ku means all the, that is a cover, Ka, Kha, Ga, Gha, Nga. And Ha and Visarjniya, that is represented by 2 dots, they are emanating from the throat, So that way he is telling us where do these vowels and consonants originate from, so that a mother or a father can teach the child how to make the sound in a correct manner. So in Sanskrit language, the right pronunciation is very important because there are a lot of other meanings which I cannot go in detail at this point. Then the Vyakaran means Sanskrit Vyakaran, and the authority is Panini grammar here. Then the third was Niyukta. This is where, Vedic language is one level above Sanskrit, because Sanskrit grammar is itself not complete. The etymology of Vedic words has to be learned, So Vedas are very peculiar books, words, where the rishis tell us that every word comes from a root, what is called dhatu. So the origin, the book that we have at present is Niyukt by Yask. He has classified all the words coming in the Vedas and tried to give us a kind of a glossary. It's a kind of a dictionary that Vedas, the words of the Vedas have been grouped together in a particular setting, because of their origin is in certain roots and they have certain common meanings, These are not easy to explain. So basically there are about 2000 roots, and I could give some examples, but it becomes lengthy answer then. So etymology, how the different roots give rise to different meanings, Of course, that is done by Panini grammar, but etymology guides us Like the word go in Vedas can have very different meaning, like the earth, the cow, the sunlight, the sun is, and they have many different meanings. And it may look to a new person very bizarre, why it is so many, but the root is so common, that something that supports us. If that supports us, then cow supports us. A child survives on cow's milk. The earth supports us. Earth is supported by the sunlight. So, the root is determining that what all meanings a particular word may adopt. That gives a huge elasticity to the Vedic words. That is why interpretation of Vedas is a very, very different cup of tea. So, that's the credit we give to Maharishi Dayanand. He opened our eyes in this particular dimension. Then comes Chanda, which is meter, like Gayatri is, and Gayatri is actually name of a meter, 24 syllables. So not only Gayatri Mantra, but say Vishwani Dev, Shano Devi Vishta, they are all in the 24 syllables, Gayatri Chand. So that is Chand part. Then Jyotish is astronomy. So, the positions of planets and all this, including sunrise and sunset. So that has been when they did elaborate simulation and modeling, they have to know all these things, eclipses and all that. So that is Jyotish. Then the sixth is called Kalp, which is a very, very huge body of literature, so-called Grahi Sutra and Smriti and all those books. They are there, ritualistic aspects, and where things have been organized in a society, in a nation, where there are organizational rules, so to say, the bylaws, etc., and also the 16 sanskars, how to lead a householder's life, from conceiving a baby to further all the how a total development of a human being. So that is Vedanga. So these are six disciplines that have to be mastered prior to gaining a mastery of the Vedas. But actually, you might have heard another word, Sangopang. Sangopang is also a compound word. Sa is a prefix. Then it is Ang, which is same as in Vedang. Then there is another word, Upang. Upang is now 6 books of Vedic philosophy. So in nowadays we say only Vedang is not enough. 6 Vedang plus 6 Upang, namely Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshik, Mimamsa, and Vedant. Then we say he has gained some sort of understanding of the Vedas. Now the second term is Vedanta. This is also a compound word, Ved plus Anta. Ant means end. And if you think of it, the English word end and Ant, they sound very similar. Now, Vedant happens to be, just now I made an observation about 6 Upanga, where the last pair is Mimamsa and Vedanta. So Upanga is counted like Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshik, Mimamsa, and Vedanta. Vedanta has another name. The original name is Brahm Sutra, but now it is more popular as Vedanta. Now, this is the last of the Upanga. That is why it is called as Vedanta Darshan. But this is as if the end of the Vedic literature. Vedas, then 6 Anga, Vedanga, then 6 Upanga, and the ending is with the Brahm Sutra, and that is why that Brahm Sutra is also called as Vedanta. So Vedanga is a discipline, 6 very wide-ranging disciplines, Vedant is a particular book, namely Vedanta Darshan, authored by Maharishi Badhayan and also called as Brahm Sutra. And the author has another name, namely Vyas. Vyas is actually his title. So his actual name is Badhayan. That also name is originating from his village, Badaji. So he left that village and returned that. Like Ram left Ayodhya for 14 years and returned. So the whole story is called Ramayana. So the word iron is, is full cycle. In the same manner, Badayi, that Badayan, he left Badayi and returned to village. So his life story is told as Badayan, you know. And he occupied a particular, probably some kind of a professorship. And that seat, whoever occupied, is called as Vyas. So Vyas is a title, and so he has. There will must have been many people with the same title, Vyas. Anyway, so Vedanta is a particular book that begins with Athato Brahm Jigyasa. So he says, there is an inquiry about Brahm, and now he kinds of proves it, why there must be a superconscious entity, namely Brahm, and what are the reasons that we have to hypothesize it, and then how to make some sort of an evidence that I am getting convinced that yes, there indeed is Brahm. So, this darshan is called darshan because Rishi is darshanat, he has seen it. So, whatever he is saying, he has seen it. So, in our Vedic philosophy is just not mere statements. This is These are statements by a person who is claiming that I have seen it like that. And then he is trying to guide others so that you can also see him. So Vedanta Darshan is the name of a book. I hope I have answered this question.
Yeah, Chris has given you his email address. I hope you have note down it somewhere.
Excuse me?
Chris gave you his email address. Do you have
Yeah,
to
I have
write
seen
down?
it. Yeah.
Do you write down or it
In a
stays
Zoom
there?
session, they save the chat. So
Oh, okay.
I don't have to write it now. It
Oh,
will be
okay.
saved. So I can see it later on.
Oh,
So
okay.
tomorrow I will send out an email. I will
Yeah.
include this
Okay.
address also.
Oh, okay.
We have 5 minutes if there is any supplementary question or anything else.
This 1.96 billion years, I know how they came up with all this yugas, Satyuga, Kali Yuga, Dwapar, and Treta, and these Manvantars and all that, 14 Manvantars. But I mean, we are supposed to be keeping track of this every single day, and this is and there is something called Surya Siddhant. I don't know anything about that. How does Surya Siddhant figure this thing out in case it gets lost or some way for no, for a long period or something?
I'm sorry, the last part. What was the thing that?
No, I'm talking about how how did they figure this out? Like, what is this Surya Siddhant anyway? That's this one. No, do you
Oh,
know?
Surya Siddhant.
Yeah,
I will say that is a, I talked about Jyotish as one of the faculty in Vedanga.
right.
So, but we didn't specify what are the books in that.
Oh,
So Maharishi Dayanand, because most of our literature has been, is has been destroyed or whatever you can call it. So,
right,
so he in the third chapter of Satyat Prakash, just to guide us, he has a section on Pathan Pathan Vidhi. Our children, how should they be educated? So in each discipline, he points out what is a kind of authoritative book. So in the context of Jyotish, he says that Surya Siddhant is a authoritative book. So it is name of a book which he thought probably he must have seen it. So it must have existed. And I also have it kind of a commentary on it. So this is a title of a book in the faculty of Jyotish,
Jyotish. Okay.
which Maharishi Dayanand found it as authoritative.
Right. Right.
But I don't know many. There is a person, I think his previous name was Vivek Bhushan or something. Then he became a sannyasi, Swami Brahmanand or something, who is running a Gurukul now in Andhra Pradesh village. Maybe now that is in Telangana. It's Gurukul called Kama Reddy. So he wrote a book on Jyotish Vivek, you know. But when I met him, he had he didn't call himself as expert on Jyotish. I think his interest has changed. Now he's running a Gurukul and teaching children. So I asked him some question on Manvanta, etc. He was not able to answer it. But he wrote that book. I have a Surya Siddhant translated by one Dr. Mahavir Prasad Srivastav, but I haven't had time to see it. I cannot
See,
comment.
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So we have a new member. Welcome, but we are about to close this session. This is 8 to 9 Central Time. If you came from Eastern, I don't know, from probably Mountain Time, you know. So
Ask them if they can introduce themselves.
if you wish, you can introduce yourself. Otherwise, this session is every Monday, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time. So we are about to close the session, and we wish everybody well. Have a good weekend, a good week, and we'll meet again next Monday. If you have some question, you can come prepared with them. And otherwise, I have a list of questions from the previous session. I take them one after another. Thank you all and have a good time.
ठीक है नमस्ते जी
Namaste.